Yo, welcome back to the channel. Kamusta po sa inyong lahat? Hiyuki is shaping up to be a burst hypercarry Glacio DPS with a dual form kit and a stacking debuff system that leads into massive damage windows. That's the core of her design. Everything else is just flavor on top. And if that already sounds like a lot, it kind of is. Because what we're looking at here is not just another damage dealer, this is very likely an anniversary tier unit designed to sit comfortably at the top of the meta for a long time. Now, based on recent previews and what's been circulating online, Hiyuki operates on a dual form combat system. In one state, she uses a more standard katana style, and in the other, she enters an empowered frost state that seems to extend her range and shift her attack patterns. The rumored weapon switching between a shorter blade and a longer one suggests that her gameplay isn't just about pressing buttons on cooldown, it's about timing those transitions to maximize damage windows. That already puts her in a different category compared to simpler DPS units. She is not just outputting numbers, she is controlling when those numbers happen. Now, here's where things get more interesting. Her primary damage loop appears to revolve around stacking a Glacio-based debuff on enemies called Glacio Shaft. Once enough stacks are applied, it leads into a burst phase where her damage spikes significantly. At higher stack levels, this also seems to interact with freeze mechanics, slowing enemies or outright locking them in place. So instead of just dealing damage, Hiyuki is effectively creating her own safe damage windows, and that's a big deal. Because in a lot of high-end content, especially hologram style fights, the biggest issue is not always damage, it's uptime. Bosses move too much, they interrupt you, they punish greedy play. Note that info here is not yet confirmed, so please treat this as a speculative for now. Hiyuki's kit looks like it directly addresses that problem. Slow the enemy down, build your stacks, then unload everything while they can't really fight back. It's controlled aggression, which is honestly one of the strongest design philosophies a DPS can have. Another reason why she's getting so much attention is because of the current state of the Glacio roster. Right now, if you've been playing for a while, you already know that Glacio has been lacking a true premium main DPS option for quite some time. Hiyuki basically fills that gap instantly. And now in a modest way, she doesn't look like a finally we have one kind of unit, she looks like a this is now the standard kind of unit. That distinction matters because it changes how people evaluate her value. She's not competing in an already crowded role. She's stepping into a role that has been waiting for a top tier carry for quite some time now. Let's talk about the comparison that keeps popping up. The whole idea of Hiyuki being Sentinel-level. This term gets thrown around a lot, but in this context, it basically means a character that is designed with very high baseline stats, strong internal synergy, and minimal reliance on niche team setups. And if the current information holds, Hiyuki checks all of those boxes. She appears to be largely self-sufficient. You don't need a very specific lineup to make her work. You can plug her into a Glacio-focused team with existing supports and she should perform at a high level almost immediately. Compare that to other units that rely heavily on very specific partners to unlock their full potential, and you can see why players are calling her the safer investment. That doesn't mean she's simple, there's still going to be optimization involved, especially with her dual form mechanics and stack management. But the difference is that her baseline performance is expected to already be strong even without perfect execution. And that's exactly what you want from an anniversary unit. Of course, we can't ignore the other side of the conversation, which is how she compares to other status-based systems in the game. Her Glacio debuff seems to lean more towards utility rather than raw explosive damage. Unlike Fusion or Havoc effects that focus on immediate burst, Glacio builds towards control, slowing enemies, freezing them, and creating longer damage windows. That might sound less flashy on paper, but in practice it can actually be more valuable. especially in difficult content where surviving and maintaining uptime matters more than just hitting a bigger number once. There's also an interesting potential interaction with the tune break system. If these two systems interact the way people expect, you could end up with extended windows where enemies are both debuffed and unable to respond. That kind of overlap is where Hiyuki's damage potential could really start to scale beyond just raw numbers. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Is she actually going to be overpowered? Or is this just pre release hype doing what it always does? The honest answer is somewhere in between. She's very likely going to be strong, probably very strong, and not just in the numbers go up kind of way, but in the kind of way that changes how you approach fights. The combination of burst damage, crowd control, and self sufficiency is already a proven formula for top tier units. But Hiyuki stacks all three in a way that feels very deliberate. It's not random power creep, it's targeted. But whether she completely dominates the meta will still come down to execution. Numbers can always be adjusted before release. Multipliers get trimmed all the time. Mechanics get tuned. Sometimes quietly, sometimes dramatically. We've seen that pattern before. What usually doesn't change much is the core identity of the kit. And that's where Hiyuki feels dangerous in a good way. Her design foundation is built around controlling tempo. She dictates when the enemy slows down, when the damage window opens, and when the burst actually happens. That kind of control tends to age very well even if raw numbers get nerfed later. So, if you're thinking about whether Hiyuki is worth pulling, the current outlook is pretty straightforward, but it's worth framing it properly. If you need a main DPS, especially for Glacio teams, she's not just a safe investment, she's the kind of unit that can anchor your account for multiple patches. The kind of character you build around, not just slot in. And if you don't urgently need a DPS, there's still a strong argument for her value, because units like this don't just fit into the meta, they quietly define it for a while. And when that happens, everyone else starts getting evaluated based on how well they work with or against that standard. If you already have a well established roster, then it becomes more about whether you want to engage with her playstyle, because she does look more involved than your average DPS. Either way, Hiyuki is not shaping up to be a niche character, she's shaping up to be a central one. And when a character releases in that kind of position, the meta always usually shifts around them, not the other way around. So yeah, she might not just be strong, she might be the new benchmark. And if that ends up being true, version 3.3 is going to be a very interesting patch. As always, if this video resonated with you, please leave a like and subscribe, ring that bell for massive gacha luck and maybe a sandwich. Thank you so much for watching, maraming salamat po, and I will see you in my next video drop. Goodbye.